And thanks for joining us for Pirates Path Career Lessons Learned. I'm your host, Scott Francis, the president of the ECU Alumni Association. We are very glad that you've joined us, and I hope everybody's staying safe, healthy, and sane and well. Pirates Path program is a series of conversations with cool pirates with cool jobs and interesting career stories and paths to where they are today. Part of the nature and joy that we derive from alumni work is giving pirates out there the opportunity to reflect on their student days and their journeys to where they are now. So while capturing that here, there's also an opportunity for recent grads and maybe even some current students to learn from those journeys and stories. Pirates Path seeks to bring you all alumni with really impressive backgrounds and experience, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you all and with Pirates nationwide. Our hope is hearing these great stories will glean some interesting strategies or tales of overcoming adversity that you can apply to your journey as well. We are happy to be joined today by a great pirate and great friend, Dr. Shannon Minges. As we get started, a few quick ground rules and format info for you. We are recording this session so that our friends who couldn't be here can access it later, so please note that it will record both our screens and the chats. We've muted your lines as we meet our featured guest, Dr. Minges. For the optimal viewing experience, you should select speaker view, which can be found on the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Also, we ask that you keep those lines muted for the duration of the program. We'll get started by asking our guests some questions, but at any time you can ask a question in the chat by clicking on the word bubble labeled chat in the user menu at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much in advance for your patience and understanding as we navigate the ins and outs of the technology. And one more thing before we kick off here, there will be a poll appearing on your screen. Mary, do I have that right? We quickly wanted to check in and see if our attendees have updated their contact info, if you're on our ECU Connect platform, and wanted to hear about other events you might be interested in. So I believe that poll is coming up, and we'll give you a second to answer it, and then we'll dive right in. All right. So it is my pleasure to introduce our very first guest on our Pirates Path program. We are joined today by Dr. Shannon Minges. Dr. Minges is a three-time graduate of ECU, receiving her BS in Health Education and Promotion, Master of Public Health, and Doctor of Dental Medicine. In fact, Dr. Minges was part of the first graduating class of ECU's dental school. Dr. Minges says that she wanted to be a dentist since the age of 5 and has encountered many hurdles that tried to prevent that dream from becoming a reality. Now she is a successful dentist and co-owner of Smiles by Shaw in Greenville, North Carolina. Shannon, thank you for joining us here on Pirates Path with ECU Alumni.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I suppose, given the situation globally, I would be remiss if I didn't open with how are you and where have you been? How have you been since May 15th or so?
I am doing great. I cannot complain one bit. You know, we are up and running. It's one of those things that I think there were a lot of unknowns at the beginning of the pandemic in terms of where everybody stood and what was going on with the infectious disease and, you know, how viral it was. One thing for us is, you know, you never thought that there would be a job insecurity with dentistry. However, we did have to close our practice down for 2 months while we were preparing to come back. We were seeing emergency patients during that time to, you know, help try to keep patients out of the emergency rooms and lower the load at the hospital and exposure risk. And we've been very cautious since. North Carolina Dental Society has helped us a lot in terms of providing some of our PPE, and then others we were fortunate enough to have ahead of time to be able to open up and run functionally and run safely.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear. And full disclosure, I have visited said office since the reopening, and it is wonderful. I felt very comfortable there. So
thank you.
We will certainly get back to how you got there. But first, kind of your origin story. You live and work in Greenville now, but I know the answer to this. But for our guests, where is home for you? Where do you what would you call your hometown?
Hometown is Fayetteville, North Carolina. So Vietnam, that has that military town. That's my hometown. But I've honestly spent more years now in Greenville than in Fayetteville. So now this is my new home.
Excellent. So in the intro, we kind of said your career journey theme is since you were 5 years old, you knew you wanted to be a dentist. So you were that kid that grew up knowing exactly what they wanted to do with their lives?
Yes. Yes, I was.
Do you remember when and how you first knew?
Absolutely. So I loved my dentist growing up. It was fun to go to the dentist. I didn't really know what all was entailed in terms of going to the dentist. I didn't have many cavities growing up because I love to brush and do all that exciting stuff that I try to encourage my patients to do. And I was always excited because you got a prize at the end of the visit. So that was kind of the fun part for me. I actually set up my Fisher-Price kitchen set as a child as my dental office. And I would have all the neighborhood kids come over when they had loose teeth, and I would take their teeth out. So don't report me to the dental board. Malpractice. That's probably why I'm not the most domestic person, because I didn't really utilize the kitchen aspect of it, but I ran a pretty good practice.
Awesome. So leading up to your ECU years, so you graduated from high school in Fayetteville?
Yes, I did. Terry Sanford High School.
Terry Sanford. And now how did you end up at ECU? Was it no-brainer you're coming? Was there a decision to be made there?
There were, I had applied all over to many universities, but it was the actual on-campus tour that sold me. I fell in love with the university. I definitely knew I wanted to go to a university that had a football team so that I could experience all of those things. But it was the actual campus that sold me on the university.
Awesome. And did you live on campus your freshman year?
I did. I lived in the lovely Green Hall before it had air conditioning. So I only survived that for one semester and ended up moving into Pirates Cove after that. And then joined a sorority, Sigma Sigma Sigma, in which I moved into the house and then moved on to Fourth and Biltmore after that and spent the rest of my time until I graduated.
Awesome. Awesome. Our neighbors at the Alumni House, the Tri Sigma House.
Yes. I knew you guys well.
So fun memories here. It's 8:00 a.m. on a fall Saturday while you're in school. What was your football home game routine typically?
Well, unless it was a noon game at 8:00, I was definitely sleeping. Let's just be real. I was probably sleeping until around 10 and maybe even noon sometimes. It just depends, the normal college student experience. But I would wake up, and being in a sorority, that was one of the big things that they tailgated together, at least had that option of tailgating with a brother fraternity. And so most of the time I was spending time tailgating with them, as well as, going to the games. That was one of the things that I loved doing because I'm a huge sports fan. And so I loved to go to the games. And sometimes I was having to work later that night because I did bartend throughout college. So that was my day.
And that can be quite a long day.
Yes, it can. And entertaining for sure.
Yes. So as you're embarking on the journey to adulthood is not always easy, and it always doesn't just happen. Are there some folks who are most influential to you as a student, either other students or administrators at ECU?
I must say that the faculty and staff at ECU are far superior than anywhere I've ever experienced in terms of the warm and fuzzy feeling, and that they really do care about you as a person. I remember that specifically on my journey when I was trying to get into dental school, I had some hiccups come up along the way, but the faculty and staff were more than supportive in terms of making sure that my dreams were coming true and that I was able to meet my goals of becoming a dentist and actually getting into dental school. And so I will say that, my friends pushed, they always believed in me. And then the faculty and staff were just awesome.
Awesome. All right. So we're getting ready to transition out. It's spring break of your senior year. People are starting to ask, what are you doing next year? At that point, did you have an answer or a plan? Did that question make you smile or sweat?
It didn't really make me sweat a whole lot. I had already known at that point that I was going into the master's program. because that was kind of something where I needed to, transition out. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to get into dental school, but that was my ultimate goal. Sometimes you have to have something in between to kind of get you to where you want to be. But studying for the DAT, that was a priority, and making sure that, every time anybody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? Dentist was always the answer. I never steered from that.
Okay, so the plan all along was to get a master's before, and I don't know, I'm a criminal justice major. We just graduate and go about life.
Oh no, the plan was never to get the master's. It was just kind of a hiccup in the road. So I did not get into dental school the first time, nor actually did I get in the second time. So it was, I was determined to make sure that, I was still following that path no matter how long it took. So, I had to do something in the meantime. You can't just take off school forever. I guess you could, but that's not going to get anybody anywhere. So I had to have something in the interim to kind of, fill the space and also educate me further.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little more about how all that transpired? So you applied, didn't get, and started along this kind of adjacent path. Tell us how that roller coaster worked for you.
Well, I guess it worked out well, but the main thing, Masters of Public Health, ECU hones in to serve. That's the main thing that ECU tries to get you to understand, is that you need to give back. And that was a huge thing for me, is I love to give back and I love to serve our community. In Eastern North Carolina, dental health is a huge disparity, and access to dental care is a huge disparity. So I was really interested in the public health aspect of that and how I could utilize that to transition it into dental practice and be able to use that information to kind of help better myself as a dental provider in the future. And so that, definitely helped me in terms of better study techniques. And, I had to write papers, I had to do research, and it made me just more responsible as a professional individual as well.
That's really awesome. Were there parts of that path that were harder than you expected? For example, any specific class, exams, any parts that you were just like, I knew this would be hard, but whoa.
So I am not a good test taker, and I can apply my knowledge, but choosing A, B, C, and D, I think about the question too much, and I second guess myself in terms of that. And so I had actually reached out, and I was tested for testing anxiety with a therapist or psychologist in order to diagnose me with the testing anxiety. And what that does is, and what she found was that it just takes me a little bit longer to read through and process the questions. And so I was allotted more time on the DAT to be able to finish the exam, and I was able to get the score that I wanted. However, along that path, I've had several health concerns in terms of, I was hospitalized with mono in 2004 for a week. It hit me hard. In 2006, I was diagnosed with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I know that's a whole spiel in terms of, what does that even mean? It's when your immune system attacks your spine, and it caused partial paralysis to me. And so I would have to wake up every morning, roll out of bed, and basically teach myself how to walk for a while. That lasted an entire summer. So these are little hurdles that I had to go through. So when I was getting tested for that testing anxiety, that therapist said, you've had a lot of health issues in the past. Dental school can be high anxiety. And she actually she closed the door, and she had a serious heart-to-heart with me. And she said, I think you need to choose another career. And I sat there for a minute, and it hurt. And it wasn't something that I was expecting to hear from somebody that I was, first of all, paying to not diagnose me with that, not kind of be motherly to me. And it hurt me. But it was one of those things that, given the right person, I think that she probably would have deterred them from their dream of becoming a dentist. I pushed back. And so I went and actually spoke to a faculty member, Dr. Sloan Burke. She's no longer with us, but she was amazing if you ever had the chance to get to meet her. And she encouraged me. She said, you can't let one person, shut you down. She's like, this has been what you wanted to do your entire life. You can't give up. We all believe in you. And, I believed in myself. I just knew that it was going to maybe take me a little bit longer, but I wasn't ready to give up, and nor was I willing to give up.
Wow. That is, I'm processing all of that.
A lot.
That's incredible. Wow. Okay. So I'm thinking the initial question was parts that were harder than you expected, and there's some stuff you didn't expect there. So what do you wish so we're getting through that part of the journey. what do you wish you knew when you were starting out in this career path?
I was very fortunate in terms of mentors, in terms of, my dedication to the field of dentistry. So there's not a whole lot, I think the biggest thing was making sure that I had people to reach out to ask questions. And, ECU, once you graduate from the dental school, they don't just throw you out the door and say, good luck. They reach out, they make sure that you have the equipment and need, abilities that you need to run a successful dental practice or become successful in your career, whatever your path may be. So I didn't really have that experience in terms of needing that.
Excellent. Now, you are in your dream job, the job you've been plotting out all along. What's next? I mean, you've accomplished quite a bit throughout this. This is the interview question where they say, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5, 10, 20 years?
Well, I think that, there's always room for growth in your practice. You can always expand your patient base and continued education is key. For instance, this year we just started doing infant frenectomies, and it's something that's helping, being a mother now myself. If you didn't know, I have a 7-month-old at home, so why not have a baby during a pandemic? It's kind of a fun thing to do. I would say just, continued education and bettering myself and bettering my clinical abilities to make sure that I can provide the best dental care to my patients and making sure that I'm staying up on, the things that I need to provide them that care. But I have to show you a picture of them.
Yes.
So this is what I'm doing right now, and this is what's keeping me busy. So hopefully I'll be a sports mom in 5 years too.
It is all the rage starting a family in the midst of all this.
Oh yeah.
So was staying in Greenville always kind of at the front of your mind as you were going through your journey?
Absolutely not. I love Greenville though. It's one of those things that I never saw myself here until I actually moved back. And so I moved to Morehead City for a year after dental school and practiced there for a year. And I had always sworn, I love the beach. I wanted to live at the beach. And then I started dating my husband, who works out of Aden primarily, but runs 13 counties in Eastern North Carolina. And so we looked at different locations, and this is where I consider home. And I fell in love all over with the city. Once you go to ECU for undergraduate, not everybody falls in love with the town. And it has transpired into a beautiful community in terms of, better restaurants, more things to do. I think they're doing a great job in terms of bettering Greenville. And so now I can say Greenville's home, and I'll probably stay here forever.
Awesome. So I am going to transition into some questions that we got from our participants beforehand when they registered. Okay. There were some questions. So the first one we have here is, how did you find your first internship?
My first internship was actually through my dentist from home, but then I was also turned in the direction of a local dentist here, or a couple of dentists here. So I sat there and, I just asked. If you don't ask, you don't know in terms of whether or not you can do these kind of internships. And so I reached out, and they were willing to take me on as an intern and shadow in their practice. And I helped, create some things that improved the flow of their practice, and I still utilize today.
Awesome. And I think you talked a little bit about how your master's program helped you prepare for your next steps in terms of your kind of sharpening and fine-tuning how you go about your process. Is that an accurate assessment of that?
Absolutely. And so I think one thing too that the master's program taught me is, service again. I always go back to service, and it's one of those things. We did a health study on migrant farm workers, which was pretty unique in my master's program, and we were able to work hand in hand with them to learn their abilities and what they needed. And they had a lack of access to dental care, and we were able to make sure that we could help bridge that gap too, to provide care to them. And that also stemmed my, during dental school, I've done I guess 5 or 6 now trips to the Dominican to help serve and do mission trips.
Awesome. Shannon, you're a rock star, man.
Thank you.
We got a question. How was your experience studying for and taking the DAT? You shared a little bit about your test taking, but the DAT studying and taking experience, can you describe that for us?
Well, and this is another, touching story in terms of that. I did have to retake the DAT a couple of times. Like I said, after I found out about my testing anxiety, that I didn't even know that was actually a thing. I was studying to take the DAT again. And during that process, if anybody out there is planning to apply to dental school, I would recommend doing all of the courses that you can, the Kaplan courses. I had a private tutor at one point, just to make sure that I was understanding the concept and the questions, because a lot of that stuff is applied knowledge, but you have to be able to, get it down and perfect it for what the answer they want, because the answer you think might be different than what they want. I actually got a perfect score on the perceptual ability. So I like to say that, that's the one part of the test that I rocked. But, and not many people have that, that's kind of a rare field to get the perfect score on the DAT. But during that time that I was studying for the DAT and applying to dental school, my stepmother was battling ovarian cancer. And that was one of the hardest things, trying to study for the DAT and, be with her. And she actually passed away before I took the DAT. And I was kind of at that point where I was like, I'm moving to Europe. I'm going to be an au pair for a year. I'll study for the DAT again next year. And I knew that that's not what she would have wanted. And so I persevered. I continued on studying for that exam. And I walked out of that exam knowing, you get your score immediately. And so I knew that I had done what I needed to do to get into dental school at that point.
Wow. So we also got a question, you kind of smooth segue. Will taking a year off affect my chances of getting into dental school?
It will not, but they do highly encourage you to do continued education if you are going to take off a year, because they don't want to, they want to make sure that you're serious about it. So a lot of times they'll, recommend, if you are going to do that, to take some courses, higher education, in the biochem and things like that, to make sure that you're, not falling off track in terms of your studies. They do like to see that you're doing something.
Excellent. And we got a question, live audience question. Thank you, John. What was it like being part of the inaugural class of the ECU School of Dental Medicine?
Well, it's actually pretty exciting, because I think that, as students, we were trying to figure things out, but so were the staff and faculty. And so we were working together. It was very collaborative. And that made us even closer to our faculty and staff, that we felt, more as colleagues to them than, students that they looked down upon. And we had the utmost respect for them. Another cool thing is we actually started off in Brody. So when I first, got into dental school, the dental school was a hole in the ground. And I was going, okay, yeah, right. This thing, I don't know if they'll get this done by the time I even graduate, but they were very quick in that process, and we were able to help, with that process. But we had the best in the technology, the faculty and staff, it was superior than anything I could have ever imagined. You're not really in the clinic setting the first year as much as you are, say, your second, third, and fourth years. So it didn't, deter us at all. But it was a great experience.
Awesome. And so this is kind of a wide sweeping question, and you can take as big a swing at it as you'd like. This is the big moment here.
Oh gosh.
Biggest lesson you've learned throughout your career?
I think the biggest lessons I've learned is that, you can never know enough, in terms of you're never going to know it all. You're never going to be, you never can just stop your hunt and search for everything. In terms of continued education is the key. You'll never be the best at anything, and you have to be able to be humble to admit that, you might not know all the answers, but can you find them? And can you go and seek help if you need advice? The great thing about being in a group practice is I can go to Dr. Marquardt and say, hey, what do you think about this image? There's, a lot of things in dentistry are not just black and white, and there can be gray areas. So getting a second opinion on a radiograph, for instance, it can be vital and helpful, or getting a second opinion on a diagnosis that could potentially save someone's life if it's oral cancer.
Awesome. Any recommendations or tips on job shadowing during COVID?
It's tough right now because, especially in private practice, I would recommend, asking your at-home dentist if they would allow you the opportunity to shadow in their office. But it's hard sometimes because the patients, you don't want more exposure. And so I think actually sitting down and interviewing with the dentist or getting to know their work schedule and workflow, maybe over lunch or after work, can be beneficial as well. I know that there are certain areas out there in terms of the Bernstein Center that might be a little bit more flexible in terms of having more people in the operatories at the time. It's just a big thing about patient safety and your safety as well. So you just have to try to reach out there. The worst thing that somebody can say is no. And so just if there's something that you want to do, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Awesome. Okay. We'll continue to take some questions, but I've got some rapid fire questions for you.
Okay.
So tell us, favorite things to do, places to go while you were at ECU.
I would have to say that there's a place called Courtyard Tavern that is no longer there. That was one of my favorite places I actually waitressed at and bartended at, but they had live music on Sundays. And so it was a Sunday fun day place, which right now there's not a whole lot of the Sunday fun day places, but it was just a fun experience. I already stated that I loved to go to football games. So that was another thing, supporting the Pirates. Go Pirates. And I worked at bars, so I was down there a lot.
Can you share with us favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Yes. So Dr. Tom Irons is somebody who spoke to us at when I was a dental student. And he said, make your life your argument. And that always stood out to me in terms of, actions speak louder than words. You can say you're going to do something. You can, just say good things. But unless you do it, it's not your argument. And so I can do, I could say service is great, but unless I'm serving in the community, it doesn't really speak volumes. So
Awesome.
Make your life your argument.
Excellent. I love that. Favorite study, experiment, or bit of research? I know this is dangerous ground with 3-degree pirate here.
And I'll go back to the migrant farm workers, working with them to make sure that they had that, access to care and that their concerns were addressed and met. I think is important because, a lot of times their voice is not heard and it's kind of, silenced in a sense. And so being able to help them meant a lot to me.
Favorite book?
And I also like studying abroad, which I do recommend for anybody that has the opportunity. Study abroad if you can.
How about a favorite book?
A lot of you probably already know this book, but Girl, Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. It's one of those books that, I read it before I became a mom, but now it's even more applicable. And it has a lot of funny things in there. And I'm not really much of a book reader. I don't have the time, but that's actually a book I could not put down. And I don't know if you would like it so much, but you could try.
That book, there's a copy of that book that lives in this house, and I bought one for a friend.
There you go.
Excellent. And how about a favorite tool or app that you've been using?
I'm not technologically savvy. I mean, Instagram, I know that's been out there forever, but I just like Instagram. I'm pretty simple. The girls had to teach me a couple TikTok videos, which I do think are entertaining. Scott, I think you might do some later.
Oh, man. I end up
the girls had to teach me how to do it.
It's going to be by accident if I end up on there. And I've been working on some stuff in the past few months. My favorite tool that I found is Food Scale.
Oh, okay.
One serving of tortilla chips is incredibly small. I've discovered that lately.
I don't know if I want to discover that app.
Oh, it's depressing. Okay, and how about a favorite habit?
My
running in the
favorite habit, I think, would be, every morning I make sure that I kiss my husband goodbye. He's still not neglected, even though I have a son. But also, make sure that I give my son, a kiss and a hug goodbye. And so I get to see him at lunch usually every day. I gave that up to see you guys,
Oh,
but they start my day.
that's big.
And
Awesome.
coffee. Coffee is also another habit.
Yes. And then do you have a final word or challenge to students or alumni looking to transform the experience of being a pirate?
Never give up. It's perseverance. That's something that we, preach at ECU is never give up on what you want to do. And I think, I believe that everybody can do what they want and make their dreams come true as long as they do persevere and work hard. It does take a lot of work. And if you get turned down, that should just be fuel your fire and fuel your steam to want to do more.
Awesome. And then any that may have been the final words of wisdom or advice for everybody. I think never give up is on brand, on brand for you.
Yeah, I think that, it's just making sure that, like I said already before, it's just perseverance and don't let people deter you from your dreams. A lot of times people would say, what's your plan B? What's your plan B? I said, be a dentist, become a dentist, whatever path or obstacles I have to go through. I still wanted to be a dentist at the end of the day, no matter how long it took me. And I think that dedication is what, ultimately got me where I am today.
Excellent. Well, I want to first say thank you, Shannon, for sharing your time and sharing your story with us. I look forward to seeing all the continued fantastic things you do out in the world. And obviously we share some space and some meetings together here and there. So we'll continue to do that. And personally, I think I'm supposed to come by in December at some point.
We'll see. I'll probably see you before then, I'm sure.
Yes. Thanks again for checking in. If you want to learn more about the School of Dental Medicine, more about Smiles by Shaw, we will put those links in the chat. I have it pulled up and I'm gonna do that and that. Awesome. We hope you'll continue to be engaged with us both in this time during the virus and well afterwards. To learn more about the Alumni Association and what we do, go to piratealumni.com. Mary has shared those links in the chat as well. We have a ton of virtual resources for you at this time. Please take a look at any items of interest. Of course, the Alumni Association functions based on gifts from our donors. So if you are inclined to do so, please consider a gift to the Alumni Association commensurate with your ability to give and passion to do so. They are certainly very much appreciated. Keep an eye on all of our social media outlets as we have Pirates Path events forthcoming bi-weekly for the remainder of the year. You can join us again on October 21st as ECU grad Matt Slate joins us. And his story is interesting. Who would ever have imagined that a young man with a degree in biology would follow a career path that led him to the banking industry? 24 years later, he serves as a senior trader in the Global Credit and Special Situations Division of B of A Securities in New York City. He also does double duty as the current chair of the ECU Foundation. So I'm looking forward to that and hope that you'll join us. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time this lunchtime, Shannon. Again, thank you for giving up time with the little man to join us. I really, really do appreciate that. So
you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
thank you all, and go Pirates.